2014 budget of the new government, which was quite hype in terms of people were eagerly waiting just to see the direction, because overall, if you see, there was a huge expectation by the people from this new government, and they were eagerly waiting to see that in which direction this budget would go. I think the overall, the outlook, the overall reaction of the government, the overall reaction of the public in terms of industry is that it's very progressive budget. This budget really focused on encouraging on building consumer confidence, investors' confidence, and even general confidence. Overall, there was a focus on rural, infrastructure, agriculture, urban infrastructure, manufacturing revival, tourism, education, foreign direct investment. So I think all those sectors were very clearly brought out. And he also focused on the prominent administrative initiatives, economic initiatives, and then in terms of regulatory parameters, where it was expected that FDI would be opened up in insurance as well as in defense, which is also very welcomed. So overall, he touched upon each and every sector. He ticked every box, and there was a clear vision which was seen in each and every sector. Maybe he was not having enough funds to allocate, but some funds were allocated in each and every sector. And the overall reaction, which also we feel from the industry, is that that he heard what we wanted to say, something we found in this budget for each industry. So overall, it is good budget, which really we saw even the market also shoot up afterwards. Initially it was little down, but really it shoot up drastically. So we found it was good, excellent, progressive, the budget by the new government. If you will come from the tax perspective, as it was expected that some relief, because at one side there has been an inflation and government is finding it difficult to control the inflation, because it is not that they have a magic wand that they would do something immediately. So to give a relief to a common man, certainly the limits have been increased. The exemption limit for people, those who were less than 60 years, increased from 2 lakhs to 2,50,000. For senior citizen, the limit was 2,50,000, was increased to 3 lakhs. They wanted to promote and encourage the savings. So therefore, ATC, which has been there for last 10 to 15 years, a limit of rupees 1 lakh is also increased to 1,50,000. So overall, maybe the relief is not something very great, but certainly there was not so much of scope, because he has to look into the fiscal deficit, and there was a need to also go for fiscal consolidation. But to some extent, where we thought maybe the initial exemption limit may go from 2 to 3 lakhs, but based on the impact on the revenues, whatever he could do was something which was welcoming, and that really helps the individuals. Interestingly, one important thing which would really impact people, those who are not ordinary but having good source of incomes, have made investments in debt funds, because debt funds were treated very differently. The holding period for the debt fund was 12 months, and if you hold the debt fund more than 12 months, it used to be treated as a long-term capital gain. And so big funds were placed by the corporates as well as with people, those who are flush with the cash, in debt funds or in FMPs, which is known as fixed maturity funds. There now the holding period has been increased from 12 months to 36. Means if you are holding less than 36 months, it would be treated as a short-term assets, and based on that, effectively all FMPs or debt funds, all liquid funds, people used to hold the money for a year or two. Now certainly any small holdings less than 36 months would be treated as a short-term capital gain. Effectively, it would be taxable at the highest rate of 30%. So that would really impact the corporates who are investing in those funds, or individuals who are not big time players in the share markets, who are using those funds to place their funds, to place their spare funds, and paying a lower the taxes. So that would really impact, and they would now probably be liable to pay the highest rate of 33%, initially what they were receiving net of tax at the rate of 10%. Interestingly, on the insurances, life insurances are usually exempt under section 1010D. Now the government has come out to say that if any insurance receipt which you receive is not exempt, there would be a withholding of 2% before any principal, any amount which you receive at the time of the maturity of the insurance, including the bonuses. So in a way that will really give a trail to the government in order to ensure that they would recover the taxes on such schemes which are not exempt. These are some of the things which are broadly from individual perspective. If you will come from a corporate perspective, I think manufacturing sector is the one where we have been seeing almost a 0% growth in last 2 years. So there was a need to really give a fillip to this sector. So very interestingly, and which is very welcomed by the industry, is that they have extended the investment allowance as per the existing law. If you invest in plant and machinery up to 100 crores, then certainly you would be entitled to get investment allowance of 15%. The limit from 100 has been reduced, from 100 crore has been reduced to 25 crores. And this investment allowance section, the period of investing in assets have also been extended till March 2017. So I think that would really help small scale sectors. Those who will invest more than 25 crores, they will get an investment allowance and would give a boost to the manufacturing sector. Apart from that, the power sector, which is very badly impacted, ATIA, under ATIA, the power sector has also been extended from the last date of 100% relief was up to 2014, which has been extended up to 2017, and the 10 years holidays have been provided under this section to a power sector, I think, which is also welcomed and would really provide a boost to our power sector. In terms of interesting thing also for the industry is that initially there is a section 94 LC which says that if you wanted to raise a foreign borrowings, if you want to raise funds through a foreign borrowings, you can do that, and there was an incentive that those bonds needs to be infrastructure bonds, and only the withholding, 5% withholding would be there on the interest element on those bonds. Now the government has done that businesses can go for foreign borrowings through any funds, not restricted only to infrastructure funds. So that is something which really will provide a big boost to the Indian businessman, that they can raise foreign funds, and the incentive is that they would only be withholding of flat 5%. And even the period for that was, I think, 2015, which has also been extended, that this lower rate of withholding would be available to any funding, any borrowing which you will do before July 2017. So I think these are the incentives which have been provided, which will really help the business community to raise the funds. The other thing, the government felt that there are a lot of people who have done outbound investments, and whatever profit they generated, they retained the funds outside. So 2 years back, the section was introduced that if you will bring this money by way of dividend, you are not liable to pay 33%, which is the highest rate by the corporate, but you would be restricted at a flat rate, you would be taxed at a flat rate of 15%. But this limit was there till 2015. The very welcome step they have done it. They have now made it open. Means any repatriation of funds from your holdings, Indian people who are holding companies outside India, if they declare the dividend from outside and repatriate the fund into the country, this 15% flat rate is there without any sunset clause. So I think that is something which will also encourage in terms of ensuring that people should bring their funds back to the country. The other thing which would really help is FIIs. When they used to make investment either through Mauritius or directly from whichever jurisdiction they belong to, there was always a dispute that when they earn on the sale of the securities or the shares, whether the income would be treated as whether it would be treated as a capital gain or as a business income. And they were always unwilling to open any offices in India because they never wanted to have a permanent establishment. And there were different judgments which were there, and there were very few judgments were in favor, few were against, few were holding it as a business income, few as a capital gains. Now government at least have clarified that any FIIs who made any investment in shares, irrespective of you have your presence in India or not, this income would be treated under the head capital gains. So even the finance minister also said that this clarity would now really ensure that FIs would not like to have their offices in Singapore, Hong Kong, or somewhere around India, would like to do a business in India by opening an office once they know that the characterization of income has already been clarified. So I think these are some of the things which would really impact the industry. And one point which I recall is on CSR. As we know that the new company amendment law under 135, every company needs to do investment in CSR, and there was a doubt that if industry would pay 2% of their turnover if they will spend 2% of their turnover in CSR activities, whether that would be tax deductible or not. There was a request by the industry to at least allow these expenses under Section 37. I think there the government has clarified that no deduction under Section 35 would be given, because CSR activities are not activities which are for the purpose of conducting the business. So therefore they have clarified that you would not get any such relief provided you do activity which is relating to your business. In a way, they have clarified that no deduction under Section 37 would be given, in spite of the fact that there was an industry request that if you want us to make so much of spending under the company law, why not it should really be tax deductible. The other point which we found is that when the taxes are not being deducted, under Section 40AI, there was a disallowance on non-deduction of tax. So to explain to you by example, that if you have incurred 100 rupees as an expense, and if you're not deducted the taxes, the 100, even though is an actual expense incurred for your business, would not be allowed. Now they said instead of disallowing 100% expense, they have restricted the same to 30%. So I think they are at least they said it would be unfair to disallow the total amount. So on non-deduction of tax on any payment made to any resident company which was disallowed 100% is now being restricted to 30%. So I think these are some of the sections which I thought are really important. One important thing which really he explained in his speech was on dividend distribution tax. On dividend distribution tax, the way the dividend distribution tax was computed, that was actually not a right way of computing it, so it clarified, and that the mechanism of computing the dividend distribution tax would lead to around 2.25% additional tax which one would have to pay. To give you an example, and they explained also that if suppose 85 rupees is being received by someone, so they would round it off 85, they will gross it up 85 with 15, and then they will compute. As a result, there would be an additional, the tax because of changing the computation method of DDT. So I think that is also quite prominent, which would really bring clarity and would lead to receiving more taxes by the government. I think these are some of the broad things he talked about. Transfer pricing, one of the important things which is there in transfer pricing is that any APA which is applicable now, for last 2 years the APA has been introduced when you go and get a ruling which would have an impact for you next 5 years. Now it has been clarified that whatever ruling you get would also have an impact in terms of your past 4 years which are pending. So I think that's something which is great, keeping in view that there are a lot of cases which are pending in the courts, there is a lot of litigation which is pending. Even the prospective APAs would help to control the litigation on the earlier years. So the rollback is something which is there in the foreign countries, and they have brought this principle exactly on same line, which is quite welcoming. And there are so many other small things which we need to analyze and see, as he emphasized that we have done enough on transfer pricing front so as to reduce the litigation and bring some sort of certainty. So I think these are some of the broad things which he has brought into. On the charitable trust, because there are all industries, they run the charitable trust, and as per the law 85% of your revenues you need to spend if you are running a charitable trust. And there are, I think, the income which was exempted, like a charitable trust received dividend or charitable interest received some securities or shares, they are already exempted, were not considered to be spent to the extent of 85%, which the government has clarified. And there were so many judgments from different jurisdictions which has now been clarified that even though your income is exempt income, the application of 85% of the funds which you receive needs to be spent would also be applicable on exempted income. But they have excluded, interestingly, the agriculture. So if a trust is earning an agriculture income, would not be considered to be spent to the extent of 85%. But other than that, any other exempted income, either dividend or long-term capital gains, would also fall within the ambit to be spent to the extent of 85%. So I think that's the clarity where they try to bring in. I think these are some of the broad things which I thought it is good to share. And I think there are much more, but one would really have to see and read the fine print. But broadly, he covered to the extent there was an ambiguity. Only one thing which was very much expected, which was in relation to in relation to retrospective amendment, and it was thought that probably that would be withdrawn. But the way it has come out, it is not being withdrawn. He said some committee would be set up in the CBDT to examine the existing matters which have not yet been opened. So that's not very clear that what would be the role of the committee if the statute still contains that particular section. Would it play like in a settlement or dispute resolution committee, or what would be the role and how it would function? That is where I think people were having great expectations that certainly we will see some sort of clarity and there would be a clear withdrawal of that retrospective amendment. But that is something which is not being seen, and to an extent what he shared, I think we will see how it would be implemented and what benefit the industry would get. But that is not something which we really expected we found in this budget. On the GAR, I think I didn't see very closely, but I don't think as it was expected that it would be rolled back or it would be deferred. But we didn't see any direction, and I'll have to see the fine print. But he did not say anything in the speech to say what has been done in the GAR, as industry's request was that why not defer it to 2 years, because rules are not there and industries or our systems are not matured so that we can say that it can really be implemented. So, but we did not see any clear direction on that. But overall, if you look at it as it was expected within 6 weeks, will he really go so much in detail and to clarify so many things where there was a dispute and to touch upon the difficult and controversial sections? I think this budget has done a lot in terms of clarifying few things. And overall, from the budget perspective, I think there appears to be a vision, as it touched upon all the sectors, as there is an intention of the government to do something in this. And I think that is something which is quite encouraging. So I see that even the stock market, which at the beginning of the budget was down but shoot up thereafter. So I think the sentiments overall of the industry is quite encouraging. The manufacturing sector got a boost. There is a clear roadmap. He did also talk about tax reform in administration, in the tax administration, although there was no time or to do something through the budget. But the way it looks, it looks like there would be a lot which we would see to come in years or in probably in months. And overall, I think it was a good beginning of a new government, and it was a progressive budget, and to a great extent welcomed by the industry. 2014, quite, I think it was very hype budget. We were eagerly awaiting for the new government's budget in terms of looking at the direction. But I think it was a good beginning, and overall the way industry looked at it, the way we looked at it, it looks like a very progressive